Okay. Our Gemara starts with Rabbi Chanina on Daf Lamed Bet Amud Aleph at the bottom. And before we begin the Gemara, just two things that we should understand before we proceed. Number one, we just learned in the Mishnah that Drisha v'Chakira applies equally to cases of monetary concerns and cases of capital concerns, dini mamanos and dini nefashos. And we found later on, Rabbi Chanina is going to tell us that there's a braita that teaches us that Drisha v'Chakira only applies to dini nefashos and no longer applies to dini mamanos. And we'll find out why. The second thing we should be aware of is that if a judge makes an error in his decision, and it was blatantly wrong, meaning he ignored an obvious source in the Torah, then the person who lost and had to pay out due to the judge's wrong decision can pursue compensation from that judge for his monetary loss if, again, the judge made a decision by ignoring an obvious pasuk or source in the Torah. If the judge makes a wrong decision because his interpretation of the source might not have been correct, then the loser in the court case cannot pursue any compensation from the judge. Okay, so these are two important facts you need to know before we begin. Let's start our Gemara. Amar Rabbi Chanina. Dvar Torah echad dinei mamros ve'echad dinei nefashos b'drisha v'chakira. The Torah teaches us that when it comes to dinei mamros and dinei nefashos, it requires drisha v'chakira. Shenemar, as the pasuk teaches us, mishpat echad yiyah lachem, one law shall be for you. So Rabbi Chanina wants to know, we have a braita that contradicts the Mishnah, that contradicts this Dvar Torah, that dinei mamanos requires drisha v'chakira. Umay tam amru dinei mamanos lo be'enan drisha v'chakira. Why is it that the rabbi suspended drisha v'chakira in cases of dinei mamanos? And the answer is, kidei shelo tinal delet mifnei lavin. They did not want to close the doors to people who wanted to borrow. Meaning, tinal delet means freezing up the credit market. If a creditor has to go through the hassle of drisha v'chakira by Bezdin to get their money back, it's going to discourage them from lending. It can be too much of a hassle for them in order to get their money back in a case of where someone is disputing the loan and they have to do drisha v'chakira. And therefore, the rabbi said, we want to make sure that people who require or need money will be able to get money from those who are willing to borrow. So now our Gemara continues and says, okay, if we're suspending drisha v'chakira by dinei mamanos, if that's the case, and judges won't have a chance to interrogate the witnesses in cases of dinei mamanos, elamiata, then now, we turn the page to Lamed Bet Amud Bet, ta'u v'lo yishalmu, then judges should not be liable to pay for their wrong decisions. They didn't have a chance to properly interrogate the witnesses. They should be off the hook for paying for wrong decisions. And the Gemara says, no. If we did that, kol shkein shetniol delet b'fnei lavin, then certainly we would be closing the door to all those who want to borrow money. Why? Because if a borrower knows that he has no recourse, that if a judge makes a blatant error in his decision, and he cannot now go to the judge to get damages and to have him compensate for his wrong decision, they're certainly not going to lend out any of their money. So we see that drisha v'chakira is suspended by dinei mamanos, but judges are still on the hook if they blatantly make a wrong decision based on ignoring a Torah directive